Chimpanzees are doing things no one has seen them do before. They are having pool parties. But that's not all. At a site called Fongoli in Senegal, they have also invented a remarkable way to catch a meal. They are making spears and hunting, just like our ancestors. Fresh steaks in a swimming pool? How long until they fire up the barbecue? After all, the great apes, chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, and bonobos seem so much like us. It's hard not to feel a deep connection.
We have come to see that we're much more similar to them than we ever imagined.
But for every revelation about the power of their minds, another shows up a stunning difference.
If you think that human genetics and ape genetics are 99% the same, what we've managed to achieve and our current position on Earth is so strikingly different from that of the apes.
We're trying to figure out what is it that makes us human. What's the little difference that makes the big difference?
How big is the gap between them and us? What's holding them back? Inside Ape Minds, right now on this Nova National Geographic special. In a remote part of Africa, there's something new under the sun. Our closest living relatives are getting bold. Chimps are supposed to be afraid of water. But this young male is climbing down for a dip. He keeps a hand on a natural safety line as he overcomes his fear. Has a boy or girl ever had more fun in a swimming hole? Wild chimps have never before been seen playing like this. At Fongoli, Senegal, anthropologist Jill Preetz and psychologist Andrew Whiten are getting an extraordinary glimpse of chimp emotions.
The personality of a chimpanzee is extremely excitable. I've hardly ever seen a facial expression like that. I mean, that was extreme excitement to the stage of kind of losing control.
It's not merely just to cool off. I mean, the juveniles have fun. I mean, they play in the water. They play a lot in the water.
This is only one of a rush of discoveries that is painting a surprising new portrait of ape minds. They are more like us than most researchers ever imagined. One by one, the skills and emotions we once thought were uniquely human are being found in apes. Still, certain specific mental gaps, the little differences that make the big difference, will ultimately explain why we study them and not the other way around. While the swimming hole is revealing chimps' emotions in the field, a new laboratory study is showing off their amazing rational powers. At the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, psychologist Josep Kolb places a peanut in a clear tube. How can the chimpanzee get the snack? She has never seen this puzzle before.
For 10 minutes, there's no solution in sight. And all of a sudden, boom, they solve it. They have to understand that they can use the water as a tool. This is interesting because the water itself, it doesn't have any shape.
Using water as a tool seems like something we would do on a good day. Another tool is being put to remarkable use by wild chimps in their quest for a meal. Back in Senegal, Jill Preetz has been keeping a close eye on chimps' eating habits. Throughout Africa, chimps eat almost anything, and they have a particular taste for meat. Here, their favorite prey is the bush baby, a small nocturnal primate. But these chimps aren't catching bush babies bare-handed. Preetz has seen chimps making spears and using them to hunt. Andrew Whiten hopes to join the ranks of the few who have witnessed this extraordinary behavior. Preetz has just collected a spear jammed in the top of a dead tree.
So I'd say, I guess this one is longer than average.
Yeah.
The average
this
is
is a
about...
big, long and fairly stout one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the length of it's interesting because that's a big hole.
Right.
And this seems pretty well judged to more or less reach to the end of it.
Yeah,
in a
it's
firm
pretty
way.
precise.
Yeah.
To make a spear, a chimp starts by breaking off a branch, then sharpening the tip. All in the quest to catch a bush baby in its daytime sleeping hollow.
So the next step would be that the chimp would approach the cavity and sometimes look in, take the tool, jab forcefully into the cavity multiple times.
It may not be ice pick sharp, but when driven by an arm up to 5 times as strong as a human's, it's a potentially lethal weapon.
They always either sniff it or lick it when they withdraw the tool. What they may do is actually break open the entire cavity, and if they're lucky, find a bush baby inside.
Break, strip, sharpen, stab. These chimps take a series of distinct steps in a carefully premeditated hunt. For Andrew Whiten, this discovery may offer a window on our own past.
Hunting's fascinating to us humans, particularly if we're interested in the evolutionary story of how we got here. Our ancestor 5 or 6 million years ago was somewhat like a chimpanzee. We know that then later in the evolutionary story we became big game hunters, using a lot of weaponry, butchery tools, and were bringing down large prey. So how did an animal like a puny ape reach that stage?
Preetz and Whiten are closing in on the answers. Most of the 20 spear hunts Preetz has observed have taken place during the rainy season. Over time, she has seen every stage of the kill. A chimp is inspecting a hollow, looking for a bush baby. She breaks off a branch and makes a spear.
The first time I saw a chimp make a tool, I think I said something like, "Where is she going and what is she going to do with that tool?"
She nibbles the tip to sharpen it. Then, with the aid of her foot, she aims the point into a hollow. Preetz has made a landmark discovery. Never before has any non-human species been known to routinely make and use deadly weapons. So what does spear hunting reveal about how chimpanzees think? Preetz and her team have seen about half the chimps here brandishing weapons, which means spear hunting has spread through much of the group. That seems natural to us, but generating ideas and sharing technologies, that's one scientific definition of culture. For Whiten, culture includes the human arts, from opera to Oprah, but it also covers the rudimentary traditions of ape societies.
If you know enough about the behavior of an individual, you can actually know where they come from. So if you know someone wears a tartan kilt, if they play the bagpipes, if they enjoy porridge for breakfast, they probably, you can tell, come from Scotland. So if you know that a chimpanzee is one of several in its group that enjoy coming and dunking themselves in a pond like this, and also that they sharpen sticks and actually use those as primitive kinds of weapons, then that chimpanzee comes from Farm Goldie.
Whiten is trying to discover what kind of mind can lead an ape to culture.
Young watch their parents, sometimes very intently, and over the following months and years they acquire that behavior. So you have to be able to copy.
When apes live alongside people, they sometimes copy our behaviors naturally, without any training. Copying someone else's successful actions beats reinventing them from scratch. But it's a lot harder than it looks. When these bonobos in the Congo started imitating each other, it seemed like play. But they were actually relying on a sophisticated skill set for copying.
You see some other animal doing something that you want to do, and being able to figure out just by watching how they're doing that so you can do it yourself is actually an incredibly complicated skill with lots of steps to it. You have to know what it is about what they're doing that leads to some goal that animal has. You have to be able to know enough about that goal to recognize that you share that goal. You have to know how is it physically working. You have to know enough about your body and other bodies to be able to line them up.
To prove that one ape can copy another, a student of Andrew Whiten's devised an experiment. At the Keeling Center of the University of Texas, Antoine Spiteri has built a kind of slot machine for apes. He loads it with a grape. To get the fruit, a chimp must first turn a disc to allow the grape to drop through a hole. Next, a chimp has to move a handle that opens a door to release the fruit payout. Spiteri now trains a chimp named Judy how to work the device. On her own, she'd never figure it out. But thanks to a sweet liquid reward, she learns the sequence of 2 steps. Rotate, then push. Ka-ching! Next, Judy's groupmates enter the corral. Spiteri wants to know if, just by watching, the chimps in the peanut gallery will learn the technique. Can these apes ape to win this food-finding game? One chimp seems to think she's got it and shoves Judy aside. A minute ago, Judy was the only one with the knowledge. Now another has it. And quickly, the trick spreads throughout the group. But for Spiteri, the most important question remains. Have the kibitzers next door also learned the solution? They have no social ties to the original group. In fact, they are hostile to them. Would they set that aside to keep up with the Joneses next door? In no time flat, they're working the slot machine like old pros. Rotate, then push the handle. Call it the Texas two-step. Learning by imitation is an essential skill for culture. And culture, along with the complex thoughts and emotions behind it, were long believed to be uniquely human.
The history of Western thought has always been premised on the idea that they're beasts and they're humans. That humans are touched by the spark of God and beasts are just beasts.
Something of a revolution came in 1960 when a young researcher with support from the National Geographic Society set up camp in Tanzania. Jane Goodall observed that chimps' emotions seemed much like ours, especially the tenacious bond between mother and baby. At a site called Basu in Western Africa, Japanese researchers recorded the story of an ill 2-year-old chimp. Her mother touches her forehead as if to check for fever. As the baby's strength ebbs, her mother remains devoted.
When I see the scene of the mother looking at the baby, I really recognize the emotional life of chimpanzees are so similar to us.
For weeks after the baby's death, her mother carries the body. Is the mother grieving? Defiant? Can an ape be in denial? It's impossible to say exactly what the mother is thinking, but hard to dismiss her feelings. Putting ape emotions on the map was only one of Goodall's accomplishments. She also found powerful evidence of their intelligence. Goodall was the first to report chimps making and using tools, in this case to fish for termites.
When she found termite fishing, people were so surprised and thought we should change the definition of humans, or we should include chimpanzees as humans.
What Goodall couldn't have known was that at a place called Gualugo, other chimps had an even more sophisticated way to catch termites. First, they use a big stick like a shovel to open the ground. Then they switch to a slender probe to pull up the insects. Perhaps Goodall's most astonishing discovery was that chimps are hunters. She watched a troop catching colobus monkeys by hand. Although no one has established that they actually coordinate their efforts, the chimps seem to be cooperating. And cooperation is, after all, one of the key drivers of human culture. Could apes rev up their culture by working together? Imagine a group of chimps, armed and dangerous, hunting as a band. So why isn't Earth planet of the apes? Do apes even have the capacity to cooperate? A series of new studies reveals the rudiments of teamwork in the great apes, but they still come up short. In an experiment at the Great Ape Research Institute in Japan, a chimp knows that food is hidden under a stone. Then researchers swap in a heavier stone. If two chimps each know about the food, can they work together? In repeated trials, no pair of chimps ever communicated to synchronize their pulling. Swap in a person, researcher Satoshi Harada, and chimps still don't collaborate. At first. But eventually they figured out the sweet rewards of cooperation. Ultimately, the chimps learned to ask for a helping hand. A needy chimp may recruit help from a person, but will it ever offer assistance?
One of the most surprising findings of all of my years of studying apes has been that they actually will help humans. If you're reaching for an out-of-reach object, if they understand what your goal is, then they will help you.
Of course, if you've dropped your banana, forget it. You won't get it back. Chimps can understand what someone else wants, and one study shows that they can even interpret another's actions as good or bad. In Leipzig, Germany, a chimpanzee is about to receive a tray of monkey chow. At the same time, he's given a rope under the platform. He can pull any time to collapse the platform and end the experiment. Another chimp now enters the cage. This chimp is free to pull a second rope on